We will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe.
The travel ban announcement comes after a U.S. judge ruled to temporarily halt deportation proceedings against the family of a man accused of the Colorado attack on Sunday. As a reminder, as he announced the travel ban, Donald Trump said the attack underscored the extreme dangers posed by foreign nationals who had not been properly vetted. The man accused of carrying out the attack, Mohammed Saboy Solomon, has been identified as an Egyptian national, but Egypt is not included on the list of banned countries. Officials say his family, who are not charged in the attack, are Egyptian citizens. U.S. District Judge Gordon Gallagher, a Biden appointee, ordered deportation proceedings to be halted, a day after the White House said it had 6 one-way tickets to deport the wife and 5 children from the U.S. Lawyers for the defense had accused the government of unfairly targeting the family, who say they were unaware of Solomon's alleged plans and have cooperated with investigators. U.S. President Donald Trump speaks during a summer soiree on the South Lawn of the White House in Washington, D.C. From Monday, citizens from 12 countries, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo-Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen, will be banned from traveling to the U.S. Those from another 7 countries, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela, will be subject to a partial ban. For most countries included on the list, the White House cites a mixture of visa overstay rates and political instability. The sole reason mentioned for the bans affecting Congo-Brazzaville, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Burundi, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, and Turkmenistan, for example, are the percentage of people overstaying their U.S. visa. Other reasons frequently cited include nations previously not accepting removable nationals, criticism of the authorities which issue passports in the country, or an inability to access criminal records of migrants. Security concerns are also cited in the proclamation. The White House accuses Iran and Cuba of being a state sponsor of terrorism, says there's a historical terrorist presence in Libya, and calls Somalia a terrorist safe haven. Meanwhile, for Haiti, the proclamation says hundreds of thousands of illegal Haitian aliens flooded into the United States during the Biden administration, which it says harms American communities. The BBC Verify team will be fact-checking the reasons behind the ban. You can follow their live page here. After Donald Trump signed an executive order restricting foreign student visas at Harvard University, China's foreign ministry spokesperson says the country opposes politicizing education cooperation. In its fact sheet following the order, the White House claimed Harvard was a top overseas party school for Chinese Communist Party officials. Speaking to reporters at a regular press briefing, Lin Jian says educational cooperation between the 2 countries is mutually beneficial, and moves made by the U.S. will only harm its own image and international credibility. Lin adds that China will firmly safeguard the legitimate interests of its students and scholars overseas. Dive deeper. The fallout from Trump's war on Harvard will long outlast his presidency, writes North America correspondent Anthony Zacher. President Trump stood next to former President Joe Biden. Along with the announcement on a ban on travel to the United States from 12 countries, plus restrictions on 7 more, a few other announcements were made by the U.S. president on Wednesday. Trump has suspended the entry of foreign students seeking to study or participate in exchange programs at Harvard University for 6 months. Trump says this is because of national security concerns. Harvard has called the order retaliatory and emphasized it would continue to protect its international students, according to the Reuters news agency. The president has ordered an investigation into his predecessor's actions during his time in the White House, accusing Joe Biden's aides of a conspiracy to deceive the public about Biden's mental state. Trump says a conspiracy marks one of the most dangerous and concerning scandals in American history. Biden says Trump's move is ridiculous. The White House says the travel ban will come into effect at 0:01 Eastern Standard Time.
Move is to protect national security. The travel ban during his first term was
under 4 days' time. It adds that key government officials will immediately engage with the countries affected by the order on measures that must be taken to comply with United States screening, vetting, immigration, and security requirements. President Trump has a mandate from the American people to address illegal and dangerous immigration. Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana tells a Today program on BBC Radio 4. Higgins, a Republican who sits on the House of Representatives Homeland Security Committee, says immigrants who have come to the U.S. who were not properly vetted or overstayed their visas are now in the country illegally. He claims some of those who arrived in the U.S. legally have committed terrorist acts against our people. Higgins is pressed as to why Egypt isn't on the list of banned countries. Trump cited an attack in Colorado at the weekend when announcing the travel ban. An Egyptian national, Mohammed Sabri Solomon, has been charged in the attack. Traveling to the U.S. is a privilege, not a right, the congressman responds, claiming Americans have had enough of immigrants coming to our country, violating our laws and committing violence among our people. He adds that the U.S. is not a racist nation, saying, "We have the right to control our borders." This new travel ban mirrors much from the first Trump administration. Robin Barnard from Human Rights First in Washington, D.C. tells Newsday on the BBC World Service. There is no clear thread between each, she continues. The commonalities are that many of these countries are places that people are fleeing due to conflict, violence, and restrictive policies against women and girls and LGBTQ individuals and others. Barnard goes on to describe Trump's list as truly punitive, saying that the administration is trying to punish countries they don't want migrants from. It really feels like it's about punishment and creating more chaos and dysfunction in our immigration system, she says. Protesters wave American flags and a Yemeni flag in front of Brooklyn Borough Hall during protests. Trump's last travel ban triggered protests across the U.S. in 2017. During his first term in the White House, Trump ordered a travel ban against people from 7 Muslim-majority countries from coming to the U.S. Critics called it a Muslim ban, and the order faced several legal challenges. It was amended several times before being upheld by the Supreme Court in 2018. Trump's successor Joe Biden repealed the order in 2021. But this time around it's a savvier version, our North America correspondent Jake Kwon writes. Last time, a crucial question in the legal battle over the bill was whether it discriminated against travelers based on their religion. This time, the order doesn't just target majority Muslim nations. Trump says a rationale for the countries chosen is based on visa overstay rates or political instability. There are some similarities in the nations chosen. Iran, Libya, and Somalia are among those featuring on both lists. However, there's a difference in how long the policy is due to last. Last time it was only 90 to 120 days, but today's has no end date. Trump speaks on Truth Social. Let's bring you more of what the U.S. president had to say as he announced the travel ban in a video on his Truth Social platform. Donald Trump said a recent attack in Boulder, Colorado, where 12 people were injured when a man attacked a group gathering in support of Israeli hostages, underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. "We don't want them," Trump said, adding that he believes the U.S. can't have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter. The strength of these new restrictions applied depends on the severity of the threat posed, Trump continued, adding that the list of countries under the ban is subject to revision if improvements are made. From the 9th of June, citizens from 12 countries, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo-Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen, will be banned from traveling to the U.S. Those from another 7 countries, Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela, will be subject to a partial ban. Is anyone exempt? There are a few exemptions to this new policy, including athletes traveling for major sporting events, some dual nationals and Afghan nationals holding special immigrant visas. The order also says the Secretary of State may grant exemptions on a case-by-case basis. What has Trump said? The U.S. can't have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter, the U.S. president said in a video announcing the ban. Myanmar ban will largely affect people fighting for democracy. Pro-democracy Burmese protesters make the three-finger salute while demonstrating outside the Burmese embassy in Bangkok. Many Burmese refugees hope to find a home in the U.S. When we look at the nationalities of people who have carried out attacks on the United States, we'll see that many of them are from countries friendly to the U.S., which have not been subject to a travel ban in this case. Trump says the countries on his list do not have capacity to vet their own citizens. Myanmar is in a state of collapse, so that's quite true. But there hasn't been any record of anyone from the country ever carrying out any kind of attack on the U.S. It simply isn't a credible threat. In the end, this travel ban applies to a country where huge numbers of its citizens have fled and are living in exile, many of them hoping to find a home in the U.S. There are already nearly 250,000 Burmese living in the U.S., and many of them are refugees with a very well-founded fear of persecution. The worst perpetrators of human rights abuses in Myanmar are mostly already banned from traveling to the U.S. Extending the ban to all citizens will mostly affect those fighting against the military for the restoration of democracy. These include activists living in precarious situations in neighboring countries where they don't have status, many of them hoping at some point to get to the U.S. So this is a pretty baffling decision. From the perspective of many Haitians, there will be indignation at this travel ban, coming as it does with a country in the grip of its biggest security crisis in living memory. Under the Biden administration and then Secretary of State Antony Blinken, there was a tacit recognition that Washington had played a crucial role in handpicking the current leadership in Haiti and was at least partly responsible for transnational effort to stop Haiti becoming a failed state, that ensured that Haitians in the United States under Temporary Protected Status, TPS, were in no danger of being deported to a nation on its knees. As such, to see Haiti on the travel ban list will be galling for the lucky few with the relevant papers to reach the U.S. It will feel to many like the definition of kicking a nation when it's down by one of its supposedly closest partners. The travel ban has been met with dismay in the targeted countries. Venezuela has described the Trump administration as supremacists who think they own the world, while Somalia has pledged to engage in dialogue to address the concerns raised. Despite its sweeping nature, the travel ban contains exemptions to some, such as immigrants who are ethnic and religious minorities facing persecution in Iran, and athletes traveling for major sporting events. And this is not the only big announcement from the White House today. Trump has also signed an executive order to restrict foreign student visas at Harvard University and ordered an inquiry into what he says was a conspiracy to cover up former President Joe Biden's cognitive health decline. As we have reported, Egypt is not on the list of banned countries, despite Trump citing the recent attack in Colorado by an Egyptian national when announcing the travel ban. There are clues as to why that is the case. The U.S. and Egypt have a strong defense alliance, a partnership that the U.S. calls a pillar for regional stability. Egypt is one of the biggest beneficiaries of U.S. economic and military aid in the Middle East, receiving a total of $1.4 billion from U.S. agencies in 2023. During his first term, Trump built close ties with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The Egyptian leader, who has ruled the country with an iron fist for the past decade, has been described by Trump as his favorite dictator. However, bilateral ties in Trump's second term have been complicated by Israel's war in Gaza. Trump's suggestions for displaced Palestinians to be relocated to Egypt has been rejected by Cairo, which is trying to lead efforts to reconstruct a war-ravaged Gaza. President Trump is resurrecting his earlier travel ban, but this time with more calculation. His first attempt targeted 7 Muslim-majority countries. It was immediately challenged in courts across the U.S. Its opponents argued the ban was unconstitutional and illegal because it discriminated against travelers based on their religion. The White House amended the travel ban twice to dispel the air of religious discrimination, which eventually won at the Supreme Court's approval. This time, Trump has learned his lesson. His administration reinstated a version of the order similar to the one that was upheld by the Supreme Court. This version does not target Muslim nations. Its stated rationale for the selection of countries is visa overstay rates or political instability in the target country. And unlike the earlier version, which was to last for only 90 to 120 days, today's order has no end date. It merely calls for a periodic review. Trump says his travel ban order is partially in response to threats of terrorism. But besides Iran, none of the 12 countries hit by the ban are named on the U.S. government state sponsors of terrorism list. Trump also said some of the countries, such as Libya and Sudan, were put on the list because of the competence of the Central Authority for Issuance of Passports. Many of the countries have ongoing armed conflicts. Others were on the list because their governments don't give access to criminal records, he said. The order also says some of the countries have been put on the list because of difficulties U.S. officials have had deporting citizens from those countries back home. Generally, people scheduled to be deported require travel documents from their home countries. With regard to the partial ban on tourists, business travelers, and students from 7 other countries. Trump said it was because of a high rate of visa overstays by its citizens. As we have reported, Egypt is not on the list of banned countries, despite Trump citing the recent attack in Colorado by an Egyptian national when announcing the travel ban. Protesters rally against President Donald Trump's recent executive order halting refugee admissions for 120 days and banning entry to the U.S. for citizens of 7 predominantly Muslim nations at Reagan National Airport, February 1, 2017. During President Trump's first term, there were many protests against his original travel ban.
I think it's terrible because it fails to understand that people are important and that they're...
This ban only spreads disinformation and hate. It wrote in a post on social media site X. Human Rights First, also based in the U.S., condemned it as yet another anti-immigrant and punitive action, external taken by President Trump. The ban will harm refugees, asylum seekers, and other vulnerable populations, including many who have been waiting to reunite with loved ones in our country, said the organization's senior director of refugee advocacy Robin Barnard in a statement. Bans do nothing to make our country secure, but rather undermine our national security and arbitrarily target those most in need of protection, he said. Several major sporting events are due to be held in the U.S. over the next few years. These include the 2026 World Cup, jointly hosted by Canada, Mexico, and the U.S., and the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. As it stands, though, the travel ban will seemingly not affect athletes from prohibited countries competing. The almost 4,500-word-long proclamation contains a single line which outlines the exemption. Any athlete or member of an athletic team, including coaches, persons performing a necessary support role, and immediate relatives, traveling for the World Cup, Olympics, or other major sporting event as determined by the Secretary of State. The travel ban has been met with dismay in the targeted countries. Venezuela has described the Trump administration as supremacists who think they own the world, while Somalia has pledged to engage in dialogue to address the concerns raised. Despite its sweeping nature, the travel ban contains exemptions to some, such as immigrants who are ethnic and religious minorities facing persecution in Iran, and athletes traveling for major sporting events. And this is not the only big announcement from the White House today. Trump has also signed an executive order to restrict foreign student visas at Harvard University and ordered an inquiry into what he says was a conspiracy to cover up former President Joe Biden's cognitive health decline. As we have reported, Egypt is not on the list of banned countries, despite Trump citing the recent attack in Colorado by an Egyptian national when announcing the travel ban. There are clues as to why that is the case. The U.S. and Egypt have a strong defense alliance, a partnership that the U.S. calls a pillar for regional stability. Egypt is one of the biggest beneficiaries of U.S. economic and military aid in the Middle East, receiving a total of $1.4 billion from U.S. agencies in 2023. During his first term, Trump built close ties with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The Egyptian leader, who has ruled the country with an iron fist for the past decade, has been described by Trump as his favorite dictator. However, bilateral ties in Trump's second term have been complicated by Israel's war in Gaza. Trump's suggestions for displaced Palestinians to be relocated to Egypt has been rejected by Cairo, which is trying to lead efforts to reconstruct a war-ravaged Gaza. President Trump is resurrecting his earlier travel ban, but this time with more calculation. His first attempt targeted 7 Muslim-majority countries. It was immediately challenged in courts across the U.S. Its opponents argued the ban was unconstitutional and illegal because it discriminated against travelers based on their religion. The White House amended the travel ban twice to dispel the air of religious discrimination, which eventually won at the Supreme Court's approval. This time, Trump has learned his lesson. His administration reinstated a version of the order similar to the one that was upheld by the Supreme Court. This version does not target Muslim nations. Its stated rationale for the selection of countries is visa overstay rates or political instability in the target country. And unlike the earlier version, which was to last for only 90 to 120 days, today's order has no end date. It merely calls for a periodic review. Harvard University has denounced Trump's executive order, which now bans it from bringing in new foreign students for 6 months. This is yet another illegal retaliatory step taken by the administration in violation of Harvard's First Amendment rights, said a Harvard spokesman. Harvard will continue to protect its international students. Trump signed an order to restrict foreign student visas at Harvard amid an escalating battle between universities and the U.S. president, along with his recently announced travel ban. President Trump wants our institutions to have foreign students, but believes that the foreign students should be people that can love our country, the White House said in a fact sheet. It alleged Harvard was a top overseas academic institution for Chinese Communist Party officials, noting that President Xi Jinping's daughter had studied there in the 2010s. According to the White House, Harvard had a history of foreign ties with potential security implications, failed to supply sufficient information about students' illegal activities, and had extensive contact with foreign adversaries such as China. It also said that many agitators behind anti-Semitic incidents were foreign students. For those who have been watching Trump closely over the last year, today's announcement comes as no surprise. Reinstating a travel ban, a key part of his first administration, contributed to Trump's successful 2024 campaign. Last July, for example, Trump told rally-goers in Minnesota he would restore the travel ban, suspend refugee admissions, stop the resettlement, and keep the terrorists the hell out of our country. As someone who previously focused on reporting about the U.S.-Mexico border and immigration issues, I find it notable that the partial travel bans include citizens of Cuba and Venezuela, two of the countries that made up the bulk of arrivals at the border during Biden's term. Since returning to office, Trump's team has often used the phrase promises made, promises kept. They are likely to use it again in the coming days.
Posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them. In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And thanks to Biden's open door policies, today there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country. In my first term, my powerful travel restrictions were one of our most successful policies, and they were a key part of preventing major foreign terror attacks on American soil. We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America. That's why on my first day back in office, I directed the Secretary of State to perform a security review of high-risk regions and make recommendations for where restrictions should be imposed. Among the national security threats their analysis considered are the large-scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record-keeping of criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays, and other things. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise, new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.